last year is Tee Higgins. Cincinnati Bengal wide receiver. He's the number 2 guy there behind Jamar Chase. He's got an ADP on Sleeper right now of wide receiver 28. Jamar Chase, wide receiver 3. And that's, not wide receiver 28. 28 overall for Tee Higgins. Jamar Chase, number 3 overall. And that's for standard scoring, people. So that just goes to show you're talking about skipping on the 3 overall pick and picking up a guy who's a 1,000-yard receiver at a big body target and an end zone target for Joe Burrow in the early third round. I think that without question makes complete sense. It allows you to go grab a running back early that you like. You could grab Travis Kelce if you like. You could even grab a quarterback up there with you like. And Tee Higgins could be a guy that if you went running back, or Kelce running back, that could be your wide receiver 1 for your team. You'd be happy with it, with his production.
Yeah, I mean, even going and getting like a big quarterback in the first couple rounds and, in the first 2 rounds and, stacking your team depends on what your strategy is, depends on where you're drafting. Like if Jamar Chase is there and you're at the 6th or 7th position, you're going to be probably more inclined to go and grab him. That way you're not going to go and get Chase. But if you're in the first or second slot, third slot, and you're taking McCaffrey and you're taking Eckler, and then when that swing comes around, you're looking to grab another running back at the tail end of the second round. Well, on the swing, you got Tee Higgins right there, and you're going to hit on a wide receiver 1. This is a 1A, 1B situation. Like we talked about that with running backs. This is truly that with wide receivers. Tee Higgins, I know that Jamar Chase, missed a couple games last year, but Tee Higgins ended up only a few yards shy of Jamar Chase and only 1 or 2 touchdowns behind him, I believe.
I think he was like maybe 300 yards, 100 something yards shy, but I think
it was less than that. I think it was like 17 yards.
I'll look it up while you're talking, but
yeah. And so you're getting a guy that's really involved in that offense. You're getting an offense that likes to throw the ball downfield. Tee Higgins is a guy that catches a deep ball. He's a huge red zone target. Jamar Chase is that too. Like we're not saying avoid drafting Jamar Chase, but we're saying if you wanted to go and stack your team with the running back, getting Tee Higgins in the 3rd is a lot better than any of the running backs that you're going to be able to get in the 3rd. So getting running back early and going and getting these wide receiver 2s might be a really good strategy for you to do and implement and skip out on some of these top tier receivers. Although there's nothing wrong with getting a top tier receiver. They're going to help win you games. Go and get the Justin Jeffersons and the Cooper Kupps and Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hills. But there are other options, especially on their own team, that we'll get into that you might be able to go and stack yourself at running back in round 1 and round 2. Or like Jono said, you can go get Travis Kelce. You can go and get Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes and be set at that position for the rest of the draft and for the rest of the season. And you can go and get a top tier receiver in rounds 3 to 6. There are guys there that are going to be wide receiver, low end wide receiver 1s and high end wide receiver 2s that you'll be able to get into those rounds. And wide receiver is an interesting position too, because every year there's the highest turnover of top 10 players in fantasy scoring at the wide receiver position.
Yep.
Those guys don't end up there. So there's going to be new guys that come in. Yeah, you're going to have the consistent guys that are always in there. The Justin Jeffersons are going to be in there. Devontae Adams is going to be in there. But you're going to have guys. Cooper Kupp comes out of nowhere. He was drafted probably in the 8th, 9th round when he blew up. There are always going to be guys later in the draft at the wide receiver position that you can go and snag that are going to have that wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2 value. Tee Higgins is the best wide receiver 2 in terms of on a team. I would consider him in terms of fantasy a wide receiver 1.
I'd argue my next guy we're going to talk about may be a better wide receiver 2 option on a team. But that being said, I do agree. Tee Higgins to me is a slam dunk if you're there. We're not saying don't draft Jamar Chase, but if you're sitting there at 3 overall, 4 overall, and you've got McCaffrey that's still there. You got Eckler that's still there.
Chubb.
If you like Chubb better, or if you're a Travis Kelce and you want to have it, depends on what your strategy is. If you know that I'm not leaving the first round without a running back, well then you're not getting Chase. But this is a guy you can target in that third round and be happy with right there.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy who behind Chase, Chase himself finished wide receiver 12 in standard last year. Tee Higgins has had back-to-back wide receiver 17 seasons. You were right, Chris. He was about 7 yards shy of Chase last year and 2 touchdowns less than Chase. I still see him 1,000-yard receiver this year. I see him being up around the 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 touchdown total, because there was a couple he missed last year too that would have put him up there with Chase as well. So again, he's not the alpha on that team, but he plays like an alpha on someone else's team. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing you're looking for in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. The wide receivers you should be targeting the guys that are going to be 1,000-yard receivers and 6+ touchdowns.
Correct.
And if you can get 2 or 3 of those guys, you're going to be set at receiver. So you don't need to go and overbuy one of these guys. If the difference in getting a McCaffrey, an Eckler, a Chubb, a Henry, the difference in those guys versus the tier 2 running backs is much greater than the difference between the tier 1 receivers and the tier 2 receivers. And
well, the tier 2 guys we're talking about too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, the best part about picking up a guy like Tee Higgins on Cincinnati versus picking up a wide receiver 2 for, Carolina or for Tennessee or Atlanta is Cincinnati was top 6 in passing attempts last year. So targets are out there.
Tee Higgins over half of the wide receiver 1s in this league.
Yeah, I agree.
I would take him over any Pittsburgh Steeler. I would take him over any Patriot.
Yeah, I would too.
I would take him over any Panther. I would take Tee Higgins over any Falcon.
Yeah, I would take Tee Higgins over any Falcon too.
I would take him over any Tampa Bay. There's a lot of guys that I would take Tee Higgins over.
He's in a great situation with a great quarterback. So and he's not going to get top coverage every time because who's there running routes next to him. So
and we saw what happened when Jamar Chase got injured. Tee Higgins' production increased.
Yep. So he's a great piece to have.
To him, he's the true alpha there.
Now this next guy we